it'll end up being remarkable, right? That's what we
As
got to
a
tell
good friend of
ourselves.
mine says, just wait for the rainbow. It's going to be one heck of a rainbow.
Yep, yep.
All right. Oh, Judy Johns, you're back. Judy was with us almost every morning until the last couple weeks. All right, Mr. Dillingham. Now, my thing says your connection is a little weak. Oh, I can still see you moving. You're good. So would you like me to introduce you, or would you take the reins and
Let's see how that goes.
so far, so good. So I'm just going to say, I think one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned as a professional, and a professional teacher and speaker, I learned from you. And in the class that we were just complaining about. But our best lessons sometimes are painful. And the one thing that, not one thing, there's many, many things I've learned from you over the years, but one that sticks with me constantly is how to be intentionally cool. I've always been an observer of human behavior, just naturally. I love that. And yet it was being in your class with your acronym COOL that I actually made it a practice. So COOL from Dick Dillingham stands for Keen Observer of Life. And I do think the teachers, instructors, coaches that are observing everything going on can show up much better and much better able to serve people. So thank you for teaching me that.
You're welcome.
Now, kind of tell us, you have worn so many hats, no pun intended, within this company. Give us your KW story.
Okay, I started with KW in 1995. I was the broker manager for a Remax office in Dallas. That's where I am, Dallas. I've been in Dallas since college. And I got into the residential business in 1977 after failing out of the commercial business. I was in commercial and I didn't
Too nice for commercial.
I didn't last a year. Yeah, I didn't last a year. The book I read about commercials should have tipped me off. The book was Winning Through Intimidation. And I thought, I don't think that's me. But anyway, then I went on to prove that it wasn't me and failed miserably. But somewhere along the way, I realized that failure wasn't permanent. Oh, that's maps and bold. That's bold. Yeah, failure isn't permanent. Failure is just learning how to succeed. And so I made my way to residential real estate in 1977 as an agent. I briefly managed an office. Then Mike Brody and I started our own company in 1980. And then we sold it and went with that company and then went with Remax. And then I came to Keller in 1995. I came as an agent.
We had to have been very small in 1995.
A little bit less than 1,800 agents. And so one of the challenges then was Keller who? Yeah. Because even in Dallas, now for those who don't know, Keller Williams started in Austin, which is 200 miles away from Dallas. But Dallas's first Keller Williams office failed. They opened, they stayed in business for about 1.5 years or 2, and then shut down the doors. So it was Keller who. Matter of fact, in Dallas, we were hoping it would be Keller who. We didn't want them to remember the one that failed, you know? And there were a lot of areas in the country that failed early on. Mo
San Diego
Anderson,
was one of them.
What?
San Diego certainly was one of them.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And then the rebound was a little rocky. But anyway, we won't go into that. Because I was out there fairly early training with Tom. Tom was your operating partner for a while. Yep. That was kind of rocky. But anyway, so I started as an agent and I was the interim regional director for North Texas, New Mexico, when the operating partner there was Althea Osborne. And I started in Dallas Preston Road, which was the only Dallas Keller Williams office open. And Mike was already there. He had gone about a year ahead of me, almost a year ahead of me. When Mike started in 1994, we had like 1,200 agents. That's nationwide, by the way, you know. So the first challenge was just identifying, helping people understand who Keller Williams was. Now, one of my challenges also was I didn't have any money. I had about $100,000 in my IRA. I had no money in savings to speak of, none. I mean, and I told my wife at the time, I said, if we've got to pull the money out of the IRA, we're going to, because we're making our big stand here. This company is
So
not only worth it.
What sold you to make that big of a stand? What spoke to you so much?
Y4C2Ts.
Yep.
The parts
That's
that
why I like you.
Yeah, the parts that I loved about it were integrity, do the right thing. I liked that. Win-win or no deal. Remember, intimidation is not my thing. I'm a cooperative kind of person, which leads me to saying I'm a team player. I want everybody to win. I don't want to win-lose. I want to win-win. And then the whole idea of training, and then God, family, business. Actually, God, family, business, I'm not sure that was in quite yet. Mo was in her first year as president, and she added that right in during that time. But me meeting Mo Anderson was another big factor. Frankly, here's the irony. First time I met Gary Keller, I thought he was a jerk.
You're not the only one to have that experience.
No, I know. You know, here's a great quote from Gary Keller that explains that. And it was from Gary Keller. He said one time, later on, I'd already joined, but it would have been nice to know this ahead of time. He said, to know me is to like me. To not know me is to not like me. And that's right. That is Gary Keller. Yeah. If you don't understand why he's acting the way he is, you can be repulsed by it or repelled by it, right? You know that.
Oh, yeah.
He can be brutally frank. He can be cold. But it's the intent, the underlying below the surface is because he cares unbelievably. And you just don't see it. And you don't really even feel it at the moment. But anyway, so I love being a team player. I love the idea of being learning based. I love the idea of win-win. I love the idea of integrity, do the right thing. Those were all fits to me. And I thought this company, I love the idea that the company stood for the idea that they work for the agent. And certainly like the idea of 100%. Once you go to RE/MAX, once you're on 100%, now I'm sort of being made a liar about this with respect to some of our new competition. I just can't see anyone being on 100% and then leaving 100%. That just it baffles my mind that you could give up 100% split. Anyway, I was at RE/MAX and I didn't want to give up 100% split. So that all fit. The profit share was attractive. I didn't know how big a deal it was going to be, but it certainly couldn't hurt. And I knew people all over the country, agents all over the country, because I had taught for 10 to 12 years with the CRS program, which is Certified Residential Specialist. And I taught all over the country. And so I thought, well, some of these people, I think I can talk them into coming to Keller Williams. And I did, some of them. And Mike, that was one of Mike's things too, Mike Brody's. And so when I joined, I became, less than a year later, we opened a small office north of Dallas in McKinney, Texas. I became an investor and I became the operating partner. So
you had some money by this time?
No, we borrowed that money. Oh. Now, by this time, I had pulled twice out of my IRA. I literally did come out of my IRA twice. Paid the penalty and came out twice, you know. Yeah. And but we opened that office. We got a bank loan for the whole thing. And there were 5 owners, 20% apiece, and I was the operating partner. Now, throughout my real estate career at Keller Williams, I was the operating partner of 5 market centers. Not all at the same time, but I think at one time it was maybe as many as 3, but the total was 5. And then later became the operating partner for Northern California, Hawaii region. And I say all that to make sure everybody understands my profile is not a fit for operating partner. I'm a complete opposite. You've been an FSO when I've talked about that. I'm a very low D, very low D.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a cooperative person as opposed to confrontational. I hate confrontation. I can't live with it. It just eats me up.
And that's a tough part of the OP role. It's a big part of it. So,
so how did I survive that? Not well. It was very taxing on me emotionally. But the reason I did it, the reason I was asked to do it is even though my profile wasn't a fit, my track record was. I had been successful in the things I had done. And so they put me in the OP role. Matter of fact, one person asked me this question one time, and it was at FSO, Franchise Systems Orientation, after I disclosed that I was not like any of you. I'm more like, I'm like maybe Amy. Are you the MCA?
Oh no, she's one of our mega agents.
Oh, then no, forget that part.
You're probably like Evie.
Yes. Oh yes, my pal Evie. Yes. She actually taught me everything I know before I taught FSO. So she was my go-to person for FSO. And then when she left, when you stole her, when she left, I was a complete failure for almost a year without her. I didn't know what I was going to do. I guess Stephen had a little bit to do with that theft, but
yeah, a little bit.
Anyway, so now I'm not the OP of anything, and I'm thrilled. But along the way, now I'm only an investor in one market center now.
Is that Dallas Preston Road?
No, Plano,
Yeah.
which is 3 miles north of Dallas Preston Road, on the same road.
Wow.
We're 3 miles apart. They have 650 agents, and we have 400 agents, and we're 3 miles apart. So Mike and I own Plano, and then I'm an owner in Northern California, Hawaii. I've just stepped down as the operating partner there, and Tony Brody has taken over for me. And I'm an investor in Maryland, DC, and I'm an investor small. Those are the 2 big ones, and then an investor in 3 regions in a very small way, very small. But those 3 are significant investments.
So borrowing from the 401k was a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked out okay.
It's worked out really nicely. It became a good investment. And you know, one thing that's kind of fun to do, and if you haven't started doing this, you should do this. You should fill out a financial statement at least once a year. All of us should do that. I have done that pretty much every year. And to go back and look at my net worth, holy cow. By the way, I threatened my wife with this. I also have our very first tax return. When the year that we got married, my wife and I filed individually. And I pull her tax return out every once in a while to see that she just didn't bring a whole lot to the table. And then I see that I'm in trouble. And then so I say, and what a lucky guy I am that you've added so much since the beginning.
Lucky and smart.
Yes.
No, dig yourself out of that one.
Well, yeah, 47 years.
Oof.
I've got it almost figured out.
She's a very patient woman.
Yes, she's a saint, and I've learned my scripts. Actually, there's only one script. Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
So, in addition, again, where I've come to love you is in the classroom. You've taught. Well, didn't you run Keller Williams University for a while?
Well, that was a matter of opinion. That was my title. Yes, I was the dean of Keller Williams University. No comments, Eve. Eve was there then.
Yeah.
But I was the dean of Keller Williams University for a year, and then later became the dean of Keller Williams University faculty, just the faculty. And people said, well, what did you do then? I said, well, pretty much whatever they wanted me to, you know. But I was one of the original participants in Keller Williams University faculty, which started in somewhere late 95, early 96. And there were like 12 of us who were asked to start a faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started that. I was still teaching CRS, but I didn't teach it that much longer. Once we started a faculty, I really had kind of a fork in the road. I could devote part of my time for Keller Williams teaching. Now, by the way, at this time, remember, I'm still a producing agent. That's really where my income's coming from.
Right.
So I've got my production, and then I can continue teaching for CRS, or I can teach for Keller Williams. I can split it, or I can pick, you know, kind of a deal. Well, my future was all invested in Keller Williams. And so I quit teaching. I retired from CRS after almost 15 years and started teaching really full time as far as my teaching, full time for Keller Williams University. Mm-hmm. And I have a foundational belief that the better we do in San Diego, the better we'll do in Dallas. The better we do in Dallas, the better we'll do in Florida. The better we do in Florida, the better we'll do in Chicago. And so it was in my best interest to help the rest of the company grow and prosper. Yeah. Because it would come home and help me with my investments inside the walls of Keller Williams. And we've done it over the years. We've done a pretty darn good job of that. I wouldn't say we were at 100%, but I'd say we're at probably 85 to 90%.
Yeah, you've done an incredible job with that.
Working together and understanding we are one large team. And I say this all the time. I say the biggest thing we have going for us is we're 165,000 agents. The biggest thing we have going against us are those times when we act like we're independently owned and operated.
Yeah. And that's one of the great gifts that you've given all of us, because there are times when it's tough to find that collaborative person, even within our world in Keller Williams, and you've always been that bridge.
Well, I appreciate it. I try, because I've seen it both ways. At RE/MAX, that's not a gift they have. Yeah. At RE/MAX, they're very combative with each other, very combative. And I didn't like it, first of all. That's not my nature. And second of all, it made me very uncomfortable in terms of who I am. I don't like confrontation. I like win-win. Yeah. And so that's what I've always been about. And this company fits that profile.
Absolutely.
So this company was a perfect fit for me.
So how, because, and anybody who's on here, we have more people on Facebook Live, and I never know how many people are there. But how did Train the Presenter and Train the Trainer come about? Because that coursework, I think, it's kind of the quiet champion of Keller Williams behind the scenes, because our standards have always remained so high for faculty. How did that come about? Because, every agent wants to teach.
Yeah, well, no, every agent doesn't want to teach, and not every agent should teach.
That's more important.
I'm going to tell you the history, but I want to point something out to you and to the people on the call. I can't help but do this. If you've been watching Bold Pivot, which we've had 7 of the 8 sessions, you have seen like 6 or 7 masterpiece presentations. Not one of them has been average or below average. They've all been excellent, every one of them. And I'm sitting here with my train the presenter, train the trainer kind of mindset, and I'm watching them repeat important points. I'm watching them compliment each other. I'm watching them give us examples. I'm watching the eye contact. I'm watching the passion and enthusiasm. I'm listening to them translate Keller Williams. All of those are on my checklist, and they are just knocking it out of the park, I got to tell you. So where did it start? It was kind of rough in the beginning, because logistically, we just didn't have our act together logistically, and we didn't really, I don't think the content was that great initially. It was just rough because initially we didn't have writers. So we either wrote them ourselves or Gary would write them, and then you would have to teach what Gary wrote, which is tough. It's tough to teach something someone else wrote.
Yeah.
But we tried to tape each person and then give them the tape and have them take it home. Well, back then the technology was so goofy that we would tape it on about 5 different cameras with CDs, with, we didn't have, not CDs, I'm sorry, VHS. We were at VHS level, and then the little mini cam. I mean, it was just.
You just reminded me, I had actually forgotten that. My first train, the trainer, I think it was called at the time, was recorded on the little tapes. Another vomit-inducing day.
Yeah, and it used to be called Train the Trainer 1 and Train the Trainer 2. But there really wasn't a lot of thought. Matter of fact, we would even do this. We would take a class of, matter of fact, we didn't limit how many could take the class. And so on the second day, if there were 20 people in the class, we'd break you up into 5 groups of 4 apiece, and you'd go into 4 different rooms, and you'd tape your sessions in that room. And the instructor, if it was me, I would float. I would go around and watch parts of all of them. Well, no, not parts in every room, but I could only get to about, I couldn't even get to half of you.
Yeah, I think we had over 150 people in the one that I'm remembering now.
It was just not, the logistics did not endear themselves to where we are today. So today, I think we're a lot more purposeful with our content, a lot more purposeful with what the purpose of the class is. We limit it to 22 people. We all watch the 22 people. We all give feedback, not criticism. We all give
your feedback, Dick. It's sometimes criticism.
No, it isn't. No, it is not. It is not criticism.
It's welcome. Whatever you want to call it, it's welcome.
That's right. It's a gift. It's a gift. Criticism is no gift. Feedback is a gift.
Years ago, after I presented in Sherry Lewis's Market Center, we went to dinner and I said, I really, very few students give you critical feedback anymore, but I would love to hear what you have to say. And she put her glass down. She goes, "Are you sure?" And I went, "Oh shit." I got some good feedback that day.
Yeah. It's like a guy said to me one time, I'm a golfer, and he was going to give me a lesson. And so I hit a few shots and I said, "You got any feedback for me?" He said, "Do you have a legal pad?" I said, "Well, that's a little more blunt, a little more honest than I was expecting." Yeah. But now the gift of that feedback is just incredibly valuable, really.
Yeah.
And so it's your peers and it's me or the instructor, and it's a lot tighter. So we've also expanded our mindset to train the presenter is not just a setting where you're in a classroom with 10, 20, 50, 100 people. Train the presenter is important to buyers and sellers, to your buyers and sellers. I was reading a leadership book, and I don't remember which book it was or which tape it was or which, Zoom it was. But they said, if you want to be a big time leader, you've got to be a big time presenter. You have to be able to communicate your opinions, your points of view, your ideas. You can't be a silent leader. And you can't be an ineffective communicator and be a good leader. And so it's an important skill. By the way, it's an important skill within your family.
Well, a lot of people, I don't think, want to take on that term of leader. But if you're a salesperson,
you can't,
or a spouse, or a parent, you
can't avoid the term. You cannot avoid the term leader. Yeah. Now, do you have to be a leader in every walk of your life, or do you have to be a leader in every situation? No, but you are leading. You are leading all the time. You're leading by example at times. You're leading. You can't escape that. And we've seen those lessons as I've grown up and as my kids have grown up. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of thinking you weren't a leader when in fact you were.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about our company is all the models we have that act as leaders. Models are leaders. I just had a quote. I wrote it down. It says, "You don't have to have a title." Here was the quote, and it kind of goes in reverse of what we're just talking about. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. We talk about that all the time. You don't have to be on ALC, Agent Leadership Council, to be a leader in the market center. Yep. We've got a lot of leaders in our market center who are not on the ALC. That is just a title.
Yeah. I think there's an important responsibility there too. And again, a lot of agents, and often the more productive, the more leading they're doing, even if they're not aware of it. And there's a responsibility.
As a salesperson, what are you doing with a buyer or a seller?
Leading them to decision making.
Yes. Yes. Now the misunderstanding is leadership is not manipulation. Okay? You're leading, and we just heard this in bold, you're leading them, you're giving them the data to help lead them to the best decision for them. That's what we do. We don't at our best, we don't manipulate. We don't over influence them to do what we want done. They'll see through that. But some of them have to have help making the decision that they know they should make, that they've told you they want to make. And sometimes they need a little encouragement, and that's leadership.
Yep. So let's shift a gear a little bit, because you mentioned FSO earlier, and it has now been a while, obviously, since we've had any classes in person at KWRI. And I love FSO when Dick Dillingham teaches it.
Well, thank you.
I don't know who you're grooming to ever be your replacement, but it's going to be some big shoes.
Well, it's a large crowd that could take my place. It's a very large crowd.
Man. How did that come about? Because at this point, between Train the Presenter and FSO, I think that's what you are, known for in this
stage. Quantum Leap.
And Quantum Leap. Yeah.
And that's really all I teach. Those really, for the most part, that's 90% of what I teach.
Which is so cool with FSO is Dick Dillingham is influencing, for those of you who don't know, franchise systems is a requirement if you're considering investing in a Keller Williams Market Center. It's a requirement for a lot of ALC members. It's a requirement every 2 years, I think now, for OPs, team leaders, and MCAs. So all of these leaders by title in Keller Williams have gotten to be influenced by you. Probably outside of Gary Keller, you've influenced more individuals in Keller Williams than any other person. I would put money on that.
Well, I don't know. I love teaching FSO for that reason. It is a diverse group of leaders. It's people looking at our company. It's people who are brand new to our company. It's people who've been with our company 20 or 30 years. It's ALC, it's team leaders, it's MCAs, it's OPs. I just love the mix, first of all. And I have a lot of fun with it. The way that got started, that used to be a 2-part class. It was called Franchise Systems Orientation, but the 2 parts were called Launch and Operations.
Yep.
Mo Anderson taught Launch for the first 2 days. And then Sherry Lewis, the regional director from Oklahoma, would take the next 2 days and teach Operations. And then the 5th day was the tour of Keller Williams International. That was brutal. 5 days is brutal. I don't care how great things are. Our brain gets bored. And 5 days was very tough. So my involvement started, first of all, taking it as an investor in market centers and as an operating partner. I would take it every couple of years. But then they asked me if I would be Mo's backup. And I said, well, yeah, sure. They said, well, you got to come take it again and audit. That means basically take it knowing you're going to teach it at some point. And so I took it as an audit with Mo. And then they asked me if I would back Sherry up.
So now you're on the hook for 5 days?
Yes. So I audited Sherry's class. I got a lot of notes, took a lot of notes. It was very helpful. And then, but I never taught it for those 5 days. They rewrote it. Before I could teach it, they rewrote it and made it.
Keller Williams University never does that.
Yeah, they rewrote it. They got to a point they were rewriting that class every month. Every month, they were updating it basically.
It's so funny. I'm teaching career visioning next week via Zoom.
Yeah.
Just this morning, I got the new revised manual they just did.
There you go. There you go. I just printed when I printed the latest rewrite of FSO, I nearly fainted because she was just going to update it, and I printed it, and it was 400 pages. It had to be. I just looked at it and I said, "This is at least double what our old manual was. How in the world do you call this an update?" And then I looked at the old manual and realized it was printed on both sides. So it was already 400 pages. Yep, I'm a genius, all right. So anyway, so the first time it was taught, now get this, I've never taught it, right? So the first day they wanted it taught, the first time they wanted it taught is 2.5 days. And Mo didn't think we could get it all covered in 2.5 days. And Sherry had her doubts. So they let the new guy teach it. And they audited. Now, Eve, you were probably there when we did the brand new FSO for 2.5 days. And Mo and Sherry audited me teaching it for the very first time.
Kind of terrifying, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I welcomed the challenge because I knew it had to be reduced to 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. And then for the last 5 or 6 years, there've been 2 or 3 of us taking on all the classes. They teach it like 10 times a year. They skip the month of February for for a family reunion, and either August or September for mega camp. But every other month. Matter of fact, this year, for the first time, we were going to teach it in 2 of the regions. And we had to cancel those. We were going to teach it in Seattle, Washington, and we were going to teach it in Baltimore, Maryland.
So what do you, I'm sure, and you don't have to tell us anything that you shouldn't be telling us, but what is Keller Williams University thinking of doing with some of this coursework that isn't optional?
I don't know. And let me back that up and say, we haven't figured out a way to do 2.5 full days on Zoom or virtually. That's right now our belief, which may be a limited belief. Right now, that's a little too long to be virtual.
No, I think you're right. And I actually did communicate with Leslie Vandergans this morning. And the way that I'm doing CV next week is I chunked it in 2-hour segments. So you take 10 hours of coursework.
And so that may be the answer. Yeah. Because Keller Williams University told us this at the last family reunion. Now, if you recall, family reunion was before the pandemic.
Yep.
So they did this completely innocently. They said they're going to start rewriting the classes in 1-hour segments. All classes. Now, when they say all classes, I don't know if they mean FSO.
Yeah.
Maybe. But the idea was exactly what you're talking about. Now they can go in and teach a class for 1 hour or 2 hours by stacking 2 1-hour segments on top of each other, or 3 hours by, the stacking of 3. And by the way, informally as faculty, and you know this because you're an approved faculty member and you've taught, if somebody asks you to do the 6 personal perspectives, you could do all 6 or you could do 1.
Yep.
Or you could do 2. And you would just stack number 2 on top of number 1, or you would stack all 6 on top of each other. So we've really kind of done that informally. And now Keller Williams University is going to write them more formally so that they can be stacked or separated into smaller chunks, to chunk it down.
Yeah.
And so if they were to do FSO, then my guess would the chunks would have to be like 3-hour chunks.
Yeah.
Not 1, but not all day. And we'd already worked on, when we were going to take it to the regions, we had already worked on having me present most of the department heads' presentations with a couple of live feeds from a couple of them.
Yeah.
So we had that kind of figured out. And we were actually going to do the whole thing in 2 days. And so now you're talking about, well, what if we divided it up into 4 3-hour segments? That's kind of 2 days.
Yep.
That's what I see as possible. By the way, I think we're watching the evolution of Bold as we speak.
Yep.
With Bold Pivot. I think Bold Pivot will be the foundation of the new Bold going forward, but I think there'll be some face-to-face, some.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be some. I mean, it's just been it's been phenomenal. It's been overpowering. 41,000 people.
Yeah.
That is an unlimited.
Couldn't have fathomed that for sure.
Yeah.
So Brian Agarity is asking, it seems that T3A isn't as readily as available as it was, obviously with COVID, but will we have, once we all get traveling again, will we have Train the Trainer Advanced?
Yes.
Okay.
The advantage to
I don't know that we could ever do that digitally. That's the challenge, right?
It is. We've thought about that. It's hard, but here's the advantage that might preclude us from having to do it digitally is it's limited to 22 people.
Right.
So you can, first of all, you can spread 22 people out in a training room. Second of all, more than likely 80% of them won't be traveling by air. And then again, the max is 22. So you're not looking for 100 or 200. Like FSO, we're looking typically for 200.
Yeah, you want to sell that room out.
Yeah, and even Bold on a non-virtual basis, they're looking for 100 or more.
Sure.
But here we're capped at 22.
Yeah. Awesome. So what's next for Dick?
Getting back out on the road. I want to get back out on the road. I love doing it. I love seeing people in their world. I love visiting. I love the variety of different people, different places. People ask me sometimes, they said, "Don't you hate the travel?" And I said, "Well, I hate the travel, but I love the destination, and I figure that's the best way to get there is to fly." It's a mindset thing, right? And so I have cut back a little bit, and I'll continue to cut back, but I love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about it. I don't take on more classes than I should. People will occasionally come up to me and say, "You should teach such and such." And I go, "No, I shouldn't. I'm good where I am."
Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate the suggestion, but so I'll just keep kind of teaching. I haven't been in production for 10, 12 years. And I don't really miss it, but I liked it. It was fine. But I see things today, and I've seen things over the last few years, parts of production that I don't miss at all. That's another thing I see. I didn't miss open houses, but I'm seeing a new way for open houses to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be better than how we used to do open houses. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, that's not even a prediction. That's almost a fact already.
Robert actually put together a phenomenal presentation on how to do, these digital open houses.
Yes, on Facebook Live, and you've got all these people, and you've got all these you've got real data to follow up. I mean, oh my gosh!
And it gets viewed over and over and over again.
Oh yes, unbelievable.
So let's go there for a second. So you're big investor in Plano with over 400 agents. And we did talk, we were joking as we came on that, Texas, there are no rules. However, you did have stay in place orders for a while.
Yes.
Your governor has relaxed all restrictions at this point, but
yes.
In the time that you were shut down, how were you supporting your agents? What were the impacts you guys were seeing? How's your market been affected? All that fun stuff.
Well, remember, production, there's a time lag with production. So when things hit, we already had a pipeline. Okay. And so so you knew you were probably good for the first month, which was March.
Yep.
Probably good for March, and probably fairly good for April.
Yep.
We didn't have to add to March, but we started talking about, well, we need to add a little business in April. We thought crunch time would be May, June, July. Okay. And so we saw a very good March in production and profitability. April, and there's been a lot of press over this across the country, but April, we did cut back on some of the profit and basically prepaid some of our expenses for May and June.
Yep.
Because we didn't anticipate, we didn't know what to anticipate. We knew to anticipate a drop. We didn't know how long and how far. And what we were trying to do is smooth things out just a little bit. So we had prepaids in April, and in Plano, for instance, our prepaids for the month were about $80,000. On the other hand, we went to our landlord and got $20,000 a month deferred in our rent for 3 months, $20,000 for each of 3 months. And so we said, we're going to pay that, but we want to defer it. And so we just took some steps, just like you would if you were an agent and you had a team. You took some steps to even things out a little bit. We helped people with their office bill, and we helped people with their office rent. Because one of the things that's going to happen in a shift, if no help is given, people leave the office. Yeah, they'll leave the office.
Yep.
And we didn't want that to happen for a lot of reasons. First of all,
you kind of care about your people.
Yeah. And we didn't want to see them scatter. We wanted to see them stay together kind of in a hub fashion. And so we did some of that. We started off doing 3 Zoom calls a week, 30 minutes a day at the end of the day. We're down to 2 Zoom calls a week while Bold is going on. Mike and we're the owners, and we've been very active, hands-on, very hands-on with people. We've seen this more than once where someone has said it's very comforting to have the owners of the office with such high profile in the office. And by the way, I've done that both ways as an owner in a market center. There's only been one that I've been very high profile, and that's Plano, where I am. The others, I haven't been as high profile, and that's more of a challenge.
Yeah.
It's more of a challenge. But to be able to, like today at 4:30 Central Time, we're going to have our call today. And Mike is going to interview an agent who's been in the business she's been in the business about 25 years, joined us about a year and a half ago. Only a year and a half ago. She's a crackerjack agent. And as long as she's been in the business, in the year and a half she's been with us, she's plugged completely in. She's one of our technology ambassadors. I mean, we are so proud of her. I mean, we were thrilled to have her to start with, but her learning curve, she has just taken it, I mean, heads on, man, right? She just went after it, and we're going to interview her. And I'm actually looking forward to that. And Mike's going to do that. And so those are the kinds of things that we can do because we're physically there.
Sure. All right. Well, what can we in San Diego do for you?
You know, this may not sound like a lot, but it is. You can continue to thrive. You can continue to have great mindset. You can continue to follow the culture. You can continue to, the expression is run the plays, follow the models. Because here's what's happening, as I mentioned to you, even within your own metropolitan area, without naming any names, some of your market centers in your metropolitan area are doing better than others, just like in Dallas.
Yep.
And you can serve as a model for those who aren't doing as well. You can serve as encouragement to those not doing as well. You can do it at a market center level. You can do it at an agent level. There are agents. Think of this was a big aha for me when I joined Keller Williams. The parallel paths between the market center and the agent.
It's the
And
same
if a
thing.
market, yes, it is the same thing. And I never thought of it that way. And so as a market center, you've got market centers that you can model for and be the model for them, be an encouragement to them, pick up the phone and call them and say, is there anything we can do to help you? Just like as agents, we can do the very same thing. Now, the thing that has really impressed me about the Bold presentation that we've been watching is the transformation in language and therefore in intent to making care calls.
Mm-hmm.
I love that language. I love that language. When I got in the business almost 43 years ago, no, matter of fact, I just passed 43 years. 43 years ago on April 1st. But right from the very beginning, I said to myself, I can't see myself as a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, if I'm not a salesperson, what am I? I'm a service provider. This was my mindset 43 years ago. I said, I'm not
that's who you are.
I know, that's what I mean. And a salesperson is not who I am. I am a service provider. And that's what care calls are all about.
Yeah.
Care calls, I love the idea when they were talking about this, and Jason Abrams has talked about this. If you can really make them care calls, then you'll look forward to doing them.
It's interesting, and I believe most of our agents have, and the feedback for this first couple months has been great. This week, I'm actually hearing from some of our agents that they're exhausted now with the care calls because so much weight has been put on them to meet these needs. So now they're itching to get back to the more traditional calls. Like, great, long as you're dialing.
Yeah, here's the script. I'm tired of helping people. I'm exhausted. There's so many people that need help. I'm exhausted helping them.
Pretty much what I've been getting this week.
But you know what Zig said, and Zig's my main man, you help enough other people get what they want, and you can have anything in life you want. That's really the way to make your life worthwhile. And in Quantum Leap, we do a little exercise. I do it to kick off the class most of the time. I'll say, get your phone out. And everybody gets their phone out. And I say, turn it on. And they turn it on, which is kind of anti-class, right? I say, now call somebody and make their day.
Yeah.
And they look at me like I'm kind of crazy. I say, I have to repeat myself. Call someone and make their day. Shouldn't take you more than 60 seconds.
Yep.
Call someone and make their day. And then we finish it up. And I say, how'd it make you feel? Everybody, it makes you feel great, doesn't it? So if you're having a bad day, that's probably because you're focused too much on yourself. Focus on someone else. Someone else will bring you out of that bad day. Help enough other people get what they want. You can have anything in life you want. There's another big quote for me that I'm going to share with you guys. I don't know if it fits, but I'm going to wedge it in. Because I'm a quote ninja.
Yeah, yes, you are.
Quotes. I do a lot of ahas, a lot of quotes. But this one helped me tremendously. And I didn't even know it, the quote, when I actually sort of lived it. And that is, don't let what you can't do stop you from what you can do.
That's a good
I
one.
figured out early on is I thought, I tried an open house. I hated it. Matter of fact, all my open houses later on, I would actually turn the lights off, close the curtains. I would make sure I parked my car 2 doors down, and I would hope that people thought nobody was home. I hated them. I can't cold call. I had a bad experience when I was a teenager cold calling, and I can't relive that for you, but it was a bad experience, and I'm not over it yet. And that's been a long time since I was a teenager, but I still got it with me. And so I can't cold call. I don't want to cold call on the phone or in person. I can't stand rejection. So I'm going, my gosh, what can I do?
I'm thinking, what in the world? How did you build a real estate career, Dick?
Yeah, well, I had a trainer one time who said this, and he used a piece of paper and he tore pieces of paper off every time you said you couldn't or wouldn't do something. And then he was left with one tiny little piece of paper. He said, well, you better be awfully good at this. Well, what that was my network. And you know what? At the top of my production career, 97% of my business came from my sphere of influence, from my database. That's what I did. I got my database up to over 2,000 people.
Wow.
Half of them were agents. So what I would do, Ashley, is come to an area like San Diego. I'd teach a class. I'd walk out of there with 8 or 10 or 12 names of people that I had contacted or come into contact. Somebody would walk up to me at a break and say, hey, I used to live in Dallas. Or someone would walk up and say, my sister lives in Dallas.
Yep.
And somebody would come up and say, Jim Reifris does this out in, Jim.
Yep.
He's a golfer. So he would come up and say, hey, next time you come, you should bring your clubs. We'll play. Okay, so when I made a connection with someone, they went into the database. And that was exponentially beneficial.
And something that is just amazing to me, because you have been around for so long and met thousands of people a year, you remember them. You and Mark Willis both have that thing where you remember people that you haven't had that much exposure to.
I do remember a lot of people, and people have told me I have a good memory. That doesn't mean I remember everybody, because sometimes I'm really in a bad spot and I have to run over. I used to do this to Eve all the time. I have to run over to Eve and say, okay, who's that person right over there? And she'd go, I don't know, let me go find out. And she'd come back and tell me who it was. But I work at it.
Yeah.
I do work at it. When I do birthdays on Facebook, so I have almost 5,000 Facebook friends. So I do birthdays every day.
Yep.
If I don't know the person, I don't wish them happy birthday till I look them up. And I have to remember where they're from, what they do, how do I know them, and then I wish them happy birthday. If I look them up and I can't remember, and I don't remember any of that, they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's got to be a reason that they're there. And then, so when I'm going and I'm looking at them to look them up, oh, I remember. Yeah, Stephanie, she's from wherever it is,
Yeah.
the Gulf Coast. Okay. Oh, Tom. Yeah, he was from Irvine. Tom Nash, Tom and Barbara Nash. Do you know them?
Yep. Up in San Clemente.
I knew them at CRS. I knew them at CRS. I came to Irvine. I still remember going to Corona when it was launched. Jim and the two guys that launched Corona, it was the fastest launch to 100 in Keller Williams history at the time.
Wow.
And they were in a little, almost just in a glorified executive suite. But I remember those things. And I remember the team leader, I don't remember exactly her name, but she was from Houston, Texas. But so I do remember a lot of those things. That's back to cool, right? Keen observer of life.
Yep.
I mean, think of all the opportunities you have in your life if you're paying attention. Think of the missed opportunities.
When you're not present. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, sir. So we're going to put our request in. I see Evie put here. As soon as you're traveling again, we got to get you out here. Whether it's Quantum Leap, which, by the way, I've never seen you teach. I've experienced those several times.
Well, you've got 2 strikes against you. You've got that terrible weather in San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had more time, at some point, I'll tell you about my first trip to San Diego when the region was a lot rougher and tougher.
Roughly what year do you think that was? By the way, Bev just bought us, right? So we have.
Yes. Oh, yes. And JoJo's coming out to help you. Yes, I know you're a whole new team. Yes.
Yes, I'm thrilled.
This was 97 or 98. So Tom owned the region. He had a condo out there and he had a car he kept out there. So I stayed in his condo. I drove the car and I'm thinking, well, so this is what it's like to own a region. One of the OPs I met in your region took me over to his market center and he says, I do the recruiting for this market center because the team leader doesn't like to do the recruiting. and I like to do the recruiting. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound quite right. And I don't want to name any names, but
Don't name.
I will privately to you later.
Okay.
You'll laugh. You'll go, yep, I get it now. It was the wild, wild west for sure back then. Your first regional owner was Dan Pastorini's wife.
Huh.
Owned, I think, San Diego or maybe Southern California. Dan Pastorini was a professional football player.
Yeah.
And his wife owned one of the regions there, and I want to say it was the San Diego region, but I'm not sure. And then, anyway, I better not go any further than that.
Yeah. Okay. It's one of the things I appreciate about you. We'll get a call.
I'd love to come out there. I'd love to be with you guys. I don't know if Eve could stand me again, but.
Oh, she was so excited to have you on here.
Well, I'm just thrilled to have you guys thinking about me. That's always a good sign that people still think about you and remember you. So I'm glad to do it. I'm going to be on a call this afternoon. It's going to be an interesting call. It's an 1 hour call, and what we're going to talk about is lives worth living.
Awesome.
Which is a takeaway, is a subset of Quantum Leap, right?
Yep.
But also happens to be in the careers worth having, businesses worth owning, and
lives worth living.
Yeah. What good is a career worth having or a business worth owning if you don't have a life worth living? Nothing. Not out there. So
hence no longer an OP, by the way.
What?
Hence, you're no longer an OP.
That's right. I'm not. And proud of it.
Yeah.
I survived. I'm about 60% back with my mental health.
More golf. More golf.
I know. That's what the doctor prescribed.
Awesome.
That's what I tell my wife.
Well, thank you, sir. I haven't seen Mike in a while. I don't know if you would, but give him a big hug for me.
I will. Well, I won't literally, but
would be all right.
I'll tell him, big hug from Ashley.
There you go.
Okay.
And when I will be in contact. A couple things Good. I want to bounce off of you, and we'll book you out here.
I think I still need to do a little work on Robert. I don't think he's completely a finished product yet, so I want to work on him a little bit more.
And Amy, we'll get you in that classroom too.
Okay, Amy, yes.
All right, sir. Thanks,
Ashley. Thank you guys for being on the call. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Have a fantastic day. Bye, Eve. See ya. Say hi to Steve.
I will.
Okay.
Bye, Dick. Thank you. Bye, Ash. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Amy. Bye-bye. Good to see ya.